Cool Cats. This week I'm going to show you how I made a copper embossed ceiling for the great room of the mini house. To make the template I used Cricut Design Space, and I created a 1 inch by 1 inch square in the pattern that I liked, and then I copied it over and over again, and I used the position tool to make sure that it was positioned precisely next to the piece before it. I repeated this process until I had an entire row, and then I welded those squares together, and I copied the row over and over again until I had the full size that I needed. I made the template in pieces due to the limitations of the template material that I had on hand.
Each tile is 1 inch by 1 inch, or 1 foot in mini scale. And there's 3 layers to the template. This defines the grid. This is the quatrefoil main embellishment. And then the final template is this template, which is a 4-pointed star that's in the center of each tile. And when they're all assembled, this is the look of the tiles. And this by itself would be really cool if you don't have copper or even aluminum to make your ceiling out of. You could just assemble these layers and this would be a really nice ceiling, or even a cool like wall treatment or something like that. And I'll probably reuse these for something after I'm done using them. So here is my sample. So I took just another piece of copper that I had around, and it's actually this stuff right here. I don't even know if it still exists because I got it used somewhere, but it's called Amico Art Emboss Copper Medium Weight. This particular square was 9 1/4 by 12 inches, and I just used the edge of it for my test. Here you can see this is just what the square looks like when it's traced with the template. This one is just the 4-pointed star added to it. This one has the 4-pointed star plus the quatrefoil, and you can see I've got the template a little bit misaligned because it's slightly towards the edge of the square. And this version, I decided to add a little dimpling in the background, and I think that is what's the final design is going to be. I like that additional texture, and that's kind of typical of these kind of ceiling tiles. So now it's time to put all of these templates together and put them on top of a piece of metal that's big enough for my roof. This is the material that I purchased for this project. This is a 12 inch by 30 inch sheet of copper. They call this soft copper. It's 36 gauge. The brand is K&S Precision Metals. This is called Create with Metal Designer Metal Sheets. It was $25 for this. One of the tricky parts with this type of material is it comes rolled up. Getting it like flat and unrolled without putting any kinks in the metal, as you can see with the other sheet that I have. It can get a little wrinkly and things like that, especially towards the center of the roll when you're unrolling it. So hopefully this will be in pretty good condition. Luckily, it's 30 inches and I only need like 19 inches, so I shouldn't have to unroll the entire roll, and those more kinked inner coils of the roll won't be used for this project. So I'm just gonna very gingerly open it without putting any bends in it if I can help it. And it looks pretty good, it's pretty smooth. I think any of these little dimples that are in here are just gonna disappear once the embossing happens. The edge right here has a tiny little bend in it, so hopefully that will be disguised by the edge of the ceiling. I'm just using below this a piece of craft foam. It's just really thin foam. It just gives you a little depth to emboss into. If I was using just a solid surface, my embossing would be really shallow because there wouldn't be any give for the material to push into. I'm gonna just cut this to size first with a pair of scissors. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure this out, and the measurement is 18.5 inches by 12 inches. It's already 12 inches wide, so I don't have to cut the width. I'm just going to cut the length of it. And I'm not gonna be super perfectionist about this because the edges of the ceiling are gonna have trim around them. I don't have to be perfect. If it's a little bit imperfect, it won't really make a big difference. I'm gonna mark it on the other side at 18.5. I have a little line right here where I'm gonna make my cut. You can use regular scissors for this, but I actually have this kind of scissors that are meant for cutting cardboard. They have an angled handle, and the angled handle means that the handle is lifted out of the way of the material so that when you cut, you don't have to force the handles through the groove that you just cut to continue cutting. Because I'm using short chopping cuts, it's not going to be as smooth as I'd like, but it's pretty good actually. That's not bad. And I still have a pretty nice size scrap to save for another project. I'm just going to roll this back up. The material is very large and it's not going to all fit on camera, so I'm just going to show the parts that I'm currently working on. One of the things to consider with this design that I made previously, my test design, is I'm embossing and debossing. So some of the designs I engraved from one side and some I did from the other side. And what that does is it lets some of the designs pop up and some of them sink in. I am going to follow the same method that I used for my test piece because I like how the parts that are sunken and the parts that are raised work. I'm going to try to do it exactly the same way. This template actually defines these inner squares. The outer squares in between each tile I draw by hand afterwards. So I'm actually working on this inner square that's just around the outside of the quatrefoil. I think the back side is going to be this side because it has some tape residue and stuff from unrolling, and I just don't want to deal with removing that like perfectly. So I think I'll call this the front and this would be the back. Best plan would be to start at this edge because this is the manufacturer's perfectly straight cut edge. That will help make sure that everything lines up nicely. I'm going to just try to remove this tape now. It's actually kind of hard to remove. See if I can get underneath there without harming finish on this, even though this is the back side. Small amount of pressure will mess stuff up here. So, okay, this worked pretty good. First up, I'm going to position these little grids. I'm going to tape them down to hold them in place. I did notice in my test that, especially here where the stencil is half as thick as here because they have to butt up together, there was a lot of give when I was doing my embossing. So I want to be really careful with that portion. I'm just going to tape it close around the edges without overlapping so I can just work without my tape being in the way. You can see it's kind of puffing up a little bit. I'm gonna try to get it where it lays down nice and flat. Just a heads up on this project, I did not do any research at all how to do this. There could be like a brilliant, way easier way to do this. I tend to like to reinvent the wheel myself, so I didn't even look at how to do this. The idea and technique just popped into my head and I decided I'm gonna go for it. Now I'm noticing right here at the edge of my design that my templates are kind of veering off a little bit, which tells me as I proceed, I might end up with things a little bit out of line. So I'm just gonna check and see if there's any wiggle room, and I'm just gonna pull this tape back off. It's this edge that I'm concerned about, so I'm just gonna keep an eye on that as I lay this back down. And that looked like it worked out fine. So just a little adjustment to make everything stay nice and square with the edge. Well, if I make it crooked relative to the edges, I think that's the part that's gonna be obvious. It's still kind of puffy. That's not ideal because there's a little gap in places between the template, but I think I'm just gonna be careful and push the template down as I go through areas. This one was, I think, a like Martha Stewart brand. It came in a whole package of these, and these blue ones are ones that I just bought. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start with the corner, and just as slowly and carefully as I can, I'm just gonna outline. See, I've already actually slightly gone in on that edge. The very tricky edges are gonna be right here where they're really thin, so I'm just gonna be really careful on this edge because the material here is so flexible. When I use it as a guide, it bends. I'm stopping at each corner and then putting my stylus back down to come across. Oh, see, this one's getting really bent. I think I might leave this entire edge and do this with a straight edge when I'm done because it's buckling so much. I know I'm not getting a straight edge on those first two guys. This part though is working really, really well. I'm just gonna continue cruising down, doing all these, and I'm just putting like, you know, a medium amount of pressure on here and just concentrating on following the guide as carefully as I can because this is something that's normally manufactured in a factory and the edges and lines are going to be perfect, which doesn't really leave a lot of wiggle room for mistakes only because they're going to be more obvious. So this particular edge has two thin outlines, so I'm not putting a line here or here. And I'm just gonna go back to this side, and I'm gonna try to just be consistent in terms of going from the left to the right, just so I don't have to discover when I peel the stencil off that I've skipped some area. And it's going really smoothly now that I have 4 sides to emboss that have a nice stiff edge on the template. It's really easy, and I'm finding that I can do a continuous square instead of stopping at each corner. This is like a pretty satisfying activity too. Now, I made a mistake in that there's a part of my room that's hidden, like part of the ceiling that won't be visible, and it's around this area. That would have been a great place to begin in case I had any issues when I first started. It would have been nice to have that in a disguised area. So that's something to consider when you're doing this, because usually when you start a new process, you can get a little wobbly when you're first getting your bearings, and then after you do a few, your consistency really improves, and it's better to keep those more inconsistent beginning ones in an area that's less visible. I did not do that, so mine are right out in front. If there's any place that you feel like you might not have embossed deeply enough, it's okay, you can just go right back over it. The stylus will just like naturally follow the groove that you already made, so you can get a deeper impression. All right, so I've gone ahead and continued embossing the whole thing. I'm gonna remove the templates that I used for this first step. I have to reapply the templates to the other half of the material because this only did half of it. I'm super happy with the way it turned out. Even the places that were a little wobbly still look pretty good. I have to go back to this edge. This is the edge that had the thinner pieces of template, and I'm just gonna use my ruler really quick to run over these pieces and connect all the ends. So I'm just lining it up with the couple that I did at the edge. Because I've done the sidelines already, when I move my stylus like this, it naturally stops at the edges. And this one, you can see I made a little boo-boo. It's a little bit skinnier than the rest of them, but that's okay. And this side is so close to the edge over here that I'm not even gonna bother putting this other edge of this box. I think that's just gonna end like this. Now I'm flipping it around and I'm applying the template, making sure that it's the same side that the template was on for the other part. And this is a little bit tricky because I have to place the template properly so the pattern continues correctly. What that means is leaving a tiny little gap right here where this template would have ended. So I'm just going to lay this template down as if it was placed for tracing this row, and then I'll butt this template right up to it. Actually, I think I'm gonna start with this side because this side is the side where the boxes aren't closed, and this is the ones with the closed boxes. So I'm gonna say that this will end up being the front. So I'm gonna make sure that it's like perfectly aligned on this edge, and that way I can cheat a little bit on that edge. So I'm gonna line these up like I just finished using the templates, and then I'm gonna snug this little guy right up against it so I know I'm in exactly the right spot to continue the pattern without any deviation. And now I'm gonna move this guy out of the way, and I'll just tape this little friend down here. So here's with both of the new templates taped down. And now relax and enjoy watching me emboss this in super speed. Check out the finished product. You can see right here, there's definitely some places where I really went out of line. So, you know, that is what it is. It's okay by me. I'm not super obsessed with being perfect. This edge, there's a lot of squares that I didn't complete their bottom edge, and the ones that I did, I really shouldn't have, because you can see they're not looking great, but that's okay. So I'm just lining this up so that the edge of my ruler intersects with the edges of all the lines I've already drawn, and I'm just going to go ahead and complete those boxes. This is really what I should have done for all of them. I'm actually going over a couple of them that are really wiggly and just giving it a try to see if I can actually clean up what I messed up. And actually that worked pretty good. Just going back over the lines in places where they weren't that straight sort of helped them look better. Now there's like 2 lines right here, but personally I feel like defining this correct line made this one less relevant, and I could probably go from the back, flip it over, and just sort of iron. See there, it's where that's popping up. I'm gonna use a really huge stylus that has a lot like this guy. He has a big tip, and I'm going to try to just minimize the appearance of that big boo-boo swervy line that I made by just rubbing it back here a little bit. Not enough so I'm embossing it from the back, but more just enough to sort of make that mark that I made more shallow and less noticeable, and it worked. There's a couple other little places I'm just gonna touch up a little bit where the line wasn't great and see if I can just make that line a little prettier. There we go. Otherwise, I think this turned out fantastic. Super happy with this. So the next step is going to be putting the quatrefoil template over the top. And for that, I will be doing it from the back side so that when we're looking from the front side, the quatrefoil pattern is popping up.
I've gone ahead and taped the quatrefoil templates together.
I'm a little bit nervous about lining everything up because in my test, I didn't get it quite lined up. Technically, I should just be able to push this to the edge of the material just like I did with the other stencils and have these show up in the right spot, but I don't think they're going to. So I'm going to try just a little test by taping down the edge of this. And then I'm gonna use just a pen to trace the shape, and then I'll lift it up to see if it's showing up in the right spot. Do this really quickly, just with a flare pen, because I know I can take that off easily. So I'm just tracing my shape right now, and then I'm gonna just peel back the stencil. It looks to me like the whole stencil needs to be shifted this way a little bit. If you can see, probably can't, but this quatrefoil is a little bit too close to this edge and a little bit too close to that edge. So I need to move the whole stencil this way and that way. I'm just going to fix the template in this position by taping it all the way around, just so I don't have any problems with it slipping. What I noticed in my test is that connecting these half circles of the quatrefoil together is sort of the weak point in the tracing process. And I actually had a lot of places in my test where these points weren't actually connected. What I'm anticipating with this final version is just doing my best to connect them and then going back afterwards and making sure that all the spots that should be connected are connected. And I'll show you what that means as we get a little further and remove the stencil. This shape is a little bit slower to trace than the squares because there's the curves to take into consideration and the stopping point, because it would be easy to overshoot and go past the edge of these curves like I just did right there. So just going a little bit more slower on this step. This is definitely going to take longer than the previous. So I'll finish now, and here's what it looks like. The alignment isn't perfect. Everything's a little bit scooched down towards this line. I could have done a better job centering it from this direction, but I'm okay with that. This is the front side, so you can see the quatrefoil shape is raised. The outline is sunken. And then the star is going to be depressed. So I will put the star on from this direction.
So now I'm going to emboss the 4 pointed star layer, and it's exactly like the other layers. I'm just going to speed right through it, and then here is the finished result. And you can see I pierced through the material on a few of those 4 pointed stars. It's very easily to do that with this thin material, but it won't matter once it's against a backing material. You'll never notice that there was a hole. And now it's time to flip it over, and I'm going to draw the dividing lines between the squares using a straight edge. And now it's time to begin the dimpling. And this is going to take quite a long time. It's going to be a bit of a slow process. Doing a little check on how the dimpling is going, and it looks pretty good. And here we go is the final result. And I did not show the process, but I actually did a pickling process on the copper to age it before I put it into the mini house. And And here's just a little peek at what it looks like installed in the great room. Thanks, cool cats. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.